Short stack of griddle cakes, melted butter, maple syrup, lightly heated, slice of ham. Nothing beats the taste sensation when maple syrup collides with ham.
Griddle cake, slice of ham.
Who killed Laura Palmer?
Talking Bird, the special edition.
Hello, and welcome to Talking Bird, the special edition, episode 41. That gum you like is going to come back in style. I'm your host, Robert Zachary, along with my co-host, John Llewellyn. Hey, John.
Hi. That show you like is coming back.
Yes. So we're doing something a little different this week.
Because honestly, there's not that much Star Wars to talk about.
Yeah, there's a little. I mean, there's like, I guess we
can catch up on the comic books.
The princes are going to be playing stormtroopers. The princes of England, their Royal Highnesses will be playing stormtroopers.
Yeah.
I think that, and a couple other things. Anyway, we're going to...
Which way is it? Wait, didn't one of them get in trouble for like dressing up as a Nazi?
Yeah, Harry.
And now he's going to be a space Nazi.
He's going to be a space Nazi.
That's all right.
You never learn, do you, Harry? You never learn. Yeah, I know. It was kind of a slow news week for Star Wars. I mean, you could dig deep and find anything, but you know, the big news that kind of came out in entertainment, and it kind of coincides with these. What do you say? Nexuses of things that John and I like in the world. It's like there's a lot of things that he likes that I don't understand, and vice versa.
And vice versa, buddy.
Trust me. Yeah, I'm not pretending I'm rocking the straight and narrow on that part. But one of them is David Lynch's, Mark Frost's. I gotta hate the word seminal. I just hate saying it.
Yeah.
The much critically acclaimed yet gone before its time television series from the 1991, I think it was, or 92, Twin Peaks, which, you know,
that's right,
started big and kind of ended with a whimper. But as you probably know, it's coming back. It's been in the works for a long time. I think it's not coming back actually till 2017. So, there's been a lot of drama. I guess at one point David Lynch left the production, and there was a campaign and all that stuff. But as far as we know, as of today, it is in full swing with this disclosure that has been appeared in many news outlets of a 217 person cast list.
Yeah, it's a lot of cast.
A lot of your old favorites have come back. They have maybe some new favorites, some big names, and some names that are strangely absent. Today I think what we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of go through the cast list.
We're gonna run down the list,
kind of talk about it. I mean, we're not gonna do all 217.
Yeah. So before we get into that though, so 217 cast members. Is that a lot? Like, I'm trying to remember, like, if you include because some of these people are clearly like extras or, you know, townspeople that have one or two lines. Like, if you include the pilot and the 2 seasons of the movie, or 2 seasons of the show, and Fire Walk with Me, like, how many actors and actresses was that? Do you think?
Right. I mean, I couldn't even guess, but in preparation, I went to the shortest Twin Peaks thing I could watch, which is Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah.
And even
if nothing else, that is the shortest Twin Peaks thing.
Yeah, it's like, well, I didn't want to restart the show. You know, it's kind of like I might end up till 5 o'clock in the morning rewatching old episodes. Yeah, I mean, it's a big cast list, but yeah, if they're doing, I don't even know I forgot to look how many episodes they've committed to. I doubt it's going to be. It's probably like 13 or something like that. It's, you know,
you know,
it's probably a relatively modest amount of episodes compared to, say, the 22 episodes in the second season or whatever, which was kind of the industry standard in the 90s, even for a an hour drama would be like, you know, you do 22 to 24 episodes of a show that at the time, I think in the 90s, you still had like approximately 45 minutes of screen time per episode. It's down to like, it was 42 for a long while. Now at cable, it seems like it's actually dropped down to 40 minutes of television per hour and 20 minutes of ads. But yeah, I mean, on a show that size, I mean, we're talking hundreds of people. So yeah, I mean, when you kind of think about it in the context of like, well, this is the cast for an entire season, it's not that crazy. And I don't think we should necessarily think that these people are all going to be full partners. And
these are not all townspeople whose names we are going to know.
Right. And I also, we'll get into this later. Some of the casting, I think is maybe this is my own interpretation that it might be, it was put up as casting maybe just because of the way Lynch views their contribution to the show being, well, you're a cast member because you contribute in X way. So we'll get on when we get down.
Yeah.
So
what's going to be fun about this too is I should note that I've like skimmed this list, but I haven't actually spent a lot of time with it. So
that's fine.
Some of these names will come up that you will be hearing me say for the first time and reacting to it for the first time.
Yeah,
I'm already seeing some now that I'm like, wow. Okay.
And that's kind of what we're, you know, and I would like to say first and foremost, if for some reason that you are involved in this show and you've stumbled across this, please don't take any offense to this stuff.
This is all in the spirit of fun and fandom.
I Googled a lot of these names, and I mean, without getting, you know, it's not really a spoiler. Generally, most of these people are hardworking actors who have played minor roles in a lot of TV shows, but you know, like, there's no shame in that. It's not a thing.
In general, that's not who I'm going to be.
Yeah, we're not going
to.
We're not going to. Yeah, I'm saying we're not going to sit down if you know this you know, if you're so and so on this thing and we don't talk about you.
Yeah.
Don't take it personal. We're just trying to hit the greatest hits and we also want to create a show that people won't blow out their data plan downloading, because otherwise we'd be here for 5 hours going through like, well, he did a 3-episode run on Psych, and that's all I have to say. And then next, but I mean, should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So I guess we'll go alphabetically.
Are we just going to read the names and then kind of skip over them? Or
okay. I just call out when you hear a name you want to talk about.
Okay.
Right. So Jay Aseng, and I apologize for butchering any of these names.
Right.
Again, I'm reading many of these names for the very first time. Alon Abotbul, Jane Addams, Joe Adler, Kate Alden, Stephanie Alin, Machen Amick. All right, Machen Amick.
Yeah, let's
back.
start with Machen Amick.
Machen Amick.
She is, you know, she's that they say core peaks.
Yeah. I've gone back and forth over the years of watching the show of like whether I think she was good on the show or not. And I mean, it could be that like sometimes she was good on the show and sometimes she was. Like, I think, and part of it too was the role she had and what was expected of her and her character's place in the show. Like, there are some times where I'm just like, all right, let's get through this scene and just get on to the next thing. And then sometimes I think like, wow, she's really, really good on this show.
Yeah, I mean,
and so we'll see how she is in this reboot.
Yeah, I mean, if you know your fan, she played Shelley, who was a waitress at the double R, and you know, a lot of her stuff was
wife of Leo Johnson,
who was abusive, and you know, there was some pretty harrowing abuse in that thing. I mean, she was constantly abused. I mean, it's the kind of thing where I almost now would that be a point of think pieces kind of thing where it's like, how is this entertainment? It'll be interesting. I'll be honest, I don't remember where we left her at the end of Twin Peaks. I know Leo, her husband, who I forget his name. I don't know if I think he's not actually on the
Eric Daray.
Daray, yeah, he is not on this cast list. Yeah. So last time we saw him, he he had been like injured, and Wyndham Earle, the nemesis of Dale Cooper, had kind of controlled him as like some kind of drone or something. It was very convoluted, but I don't really remember where we left Shelley.
Right. So she was at the beauty pageant. She was in the beauty pageant, which Wyndham Earle sabotaged, which then led to him kidnapping Heather Graham's character, whose name escapes me at the moment. Annie, which of course. Annie! Which then led to... I don't know how much of this we should be spoiling or not spoiling for people, but it basically led to the final confrontation. But once we left that beauty pageant, for most of the characters, that was kind of the last time we saw them.
Yeah.
So, and I can't remember... I don't think we saw her going back to Bobby, like with Bobby again.
Oh yeah, she had
did she run into his arms or something?
Maybe.
Yeah. So, right. There was that beauty pageant. The lights went out. The strobe light turned on for some reason, and that was, I think, the last time we saw Shelley. So. Yeah.
But like I said, she was a core character. Her not showing up. I mean, she's been in television this whole time. I know she's done a lot of small movies. She was on a show. It's a show about witches, like contemporary. It's kind of like one of these late night soap opera things. My wife watches it. And actually, she said she liked it. So it's just, she's still been in the business, and this, she was of that fame. I was thinking about this last night, that famous Rolling Stone of the women of Twin Peaks. She was like one of the three, her and Sherilyn Fenn and Laura Flynn Boyle. Mm-hmm. It's like kind of an iconic early 90s thing. Anyway, there's also Eric Ray Anderson, Finn Andrews.
I guess I'm immediately regretting like going through every name because we don't.
Yeah, maybe we'll.
So maybe skip to the next.
Yeah, let's skip to Dana Ashbrook since we're talking Shelley, which we know if Dana Ashbrook has been in. I'm trying to think. He's been in stuff. I've seen him in stuff, and it's like it's kind of one of those things where. They did did you ever see the episode of Psych that they did?
I was going to say, he did a couple episodes of Psych.
They brought a lot of those actors back.
Yeah.
For a kind of a Twin Peaks inspired thing. I think actually Mädchen Amick was in that too. I mean, he's like one of those, I always love oh God, I'm completely blanking. What was his name on the show again?
Bobby Briggs.
Thank you. Bobby Briggs. So it's like, he was like, I liked him because he was the quintessential like late 80s high school shithead guy, but with a very dark secret. He thought his charm in the aisles of harassing, his rivals or whatever. It was kind of like, and I think when the show gave his character more to do than just be, so Bobby Briggs at the very start of the show in the pilot, right? He's, the high school quarterback. He's married. He's dating the prom queen, all that kind of stuff, and then you find out more about what he's doing. But as the show found more to do with him, other than just like, oh, he's the quarterback with the dark secret or whatever. Like the character became a lot more interesting. But Dana Ashbrook was, I thought, really good on the show. Yeah, I think,
and in subsequent interviews about the show, like he seems to get it. Like he kind of knows what Twin Peaks is and was, but he doesn't feel like he's bound by it, or And so I think having him back on the show is going to be really cool. And his hair, I don't know if they're dyeing his hair.
Oh yeah, he's got gray hair now too.
Yeah, he's got pretty light, almost white hair now, which could be kind of a cool look for Bobby Briggs.
Exactly.
So you're asking what he was in prior to Twin Peaks. He had an uncredited role in Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. He did a Cagney and Lacey, did a couple of Knots Landings. He did a 21 Jump Street.
I love 21 Jump Street.
He was in Ghost Dad.
Oh, jeez.
And then subsequent to Twin Peaks, it's sort of similar things. He's been on TV series, either, he did an episode of The Pretender, he did an episode of Charmed, whatever. But he had a couple recurring roles. He was on some show called Crisis Center from 1997, which I don't remember.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
He was Rich Rinaldi on Dawson's Creek, which I've never seen.
Me neither.
He did a Deadwood. And then he was on a show called The Kill Point in 2007. And then he was in the TV show version of Crash. Based on
Showtime.
Yeah.
So he's worked for Showtime before. Yeah, my favorite thing is that him and Don, when his teenage rebellion, I think maybe it was the second episode that he lights a cigarette right at the dinner table. And his dad, which was Don Davis, Major Briggs, military dad, and
slaps it out of his mouth.
Yeah, it said something like, "That's not becoming a varsity athlete." I just love that kind of Lynch's or whoever. That these TV shows are so huge, you can't just credit it to one person. But whoever thing, this idea of kind of the Beaver Cleaver refraction of the idea where it's why is I would never I when I was that age I smoked cigarettes too, and I would never have imagined lighting up in front of my father, who had been a smoker and stuff like that, and he probably would have slapped it out of my mouth. So I really, and I was never a varsity.
You connected with
I was an Eagle Scout, but I was never a varsity athlete. So that used to be a thing that when my parents would get mad at me or I, use bad language or stuff when I was a kid, they would say that's not very becoming an Eagle Scout. They would always try to guilt you with the thing that you had achieved. So I always loved that. Let's skip to Phoebe Augustine. And
yes, Ronette Pulaski.
And I kind of forget about Ronette Pulaski because isn't she kind of non-verbal for most of the show?
Yeah, she is.
But she has a lot of lines in Firewalk with Me.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of where she I think made the most out of that character.
Yeah, so it's...
Because other than that, I think her only line in the show is train, 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 train.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to her IMDb, it's literally her picture from whatever the catalog or whatever that was at One-Eyed Jack's or whatever. Yeah. So it's kind of she hasn't done a ton of work, but she has done... I guess this just the missing pieces, is that the Twin Peaks, is that the missing, is that extras from the Firewalk with Me?
I think so.
I never picked that Blu-ray up. I kind of slept on that. So
yeah, I never got the gold box. I've been meaning to, because it has the mostly because it has that Saturday Night Live sketch in it.
Oh yeah.
But I think it was here's people talking about, what they thought might have happened on the show afterwards. Or
something. I had gotten the first box set, and it was kind of the extras were a little left me wanting, and then I kind of didn't. I'm I'll always upgrade, and it's all streaming now.
Oh wait, I remember what it is now.
Okay,
and maybe you said this and I wasn't paying attention, but so. When they re-released Fire Walk with Me, I think. Yeah. It's basically deleted scenes from Fire Walk with Me, but it's everyone, because when Fire Walk with Me came out, the part that takes place in Twin Peaks, I think a lot of fans were like, "What about all those people who are on the show? Why don't we see Hank or whatever?" And so the missing pieces is all of the footage they shot that had essentially everyone else who was on the show, but just didn't get into the movie.
Yeah, I think that's it's not on the DVD because I have the DVD, and there might be a scene or two there, but it was always back in the days because it's just to backtrack a little bit. I'd watched this show when it was on, kind of in a, I was young and in college. I didn't, and it was you got one shot to watch it, so it wasn't a situation where I missed most of the episodes because it would change dates and stuff, and there's no way to just check on your phone, so I would always miss it. So I ended up having a tape with only one episode on it that I'd watched 10 times, and it's one of the worst episodes. But anyway, my point is that what is my damn point? Oh,
Ronette Pulaski.
Oh, jeez. Now
you don't really see Fire Walk with Me, where she had the biggest part.
Oh no, I guess I know my point was is that I spent a lot of time in college at these, and went back in the infancy of internet reading these FAQ lists, and the Twin Peaks one, the Rec Arts fantasy thing, they would talk about when Fire Walk With Me had come out. Oh, I think it came out the summer after, or a whole year and 2 years after it was canceled. And so it was kind of that thing where it was like there wasn't a lot of, it had kind of left the zeitgeist, and then it dropped, and then people were really disappointed that the movie was kind of a different, almost a self-contained story that had threads that connected to the TV show.
Yeah.
And that there had always been this rumor that there was like 3 hours of like every Twin Peaks character had appeared in this. And, we'll get to that there's actually a character when I was doing research that actually shows up in those, and he's not he wasn't tagged as a returning actor. But that's where he he had gotten his nameplate or whatever they call it. So let's go to Monica Bellucci.
I like Monica Bellucci.
Yeah, who is
I don't think she
she's never worked with Lynch, has she?
No. And I mean, her English language is not fantastic. Like the English language stuff that she's in, you're like, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of her looking.
But she's pretty good.
It's a lot of, when it's English, it's a lot of her looking beautiful and she was in the most recent James Bond movie, which I think somebody needs to owes her an apology for giving her that part, because it was like, oh wow, let's take James Bond all the way back to the early 60s. And it was a very strange turn of a role. Not her fault at all. But I am excited to see her in this. Lynch does tend if you want to ding Lynch on kind of being old school in his depiction of women, he does tend to do it for their beauty a lot of times, and maybe doesn't always.
He goes for a look rather than like
the dark hair and
a talent.
And
sometimes,
but we know she's talented. I mean, it's just the way that he uses them. Like I said, we don't know what she's got in this, but also just below her in this list is Jim Belushi.
Yeah, what the hell?
Well,
that was the one where I just saw it for the first time, like as we were recording. What on earth is that?
So here's the thing that people are going to laugh at, because we haven't seen any evidence of this in 20 years or more. Jim Belushi actually was a pretty good actor.
He was fine,
but he kind of got into that thing where it was like he was in Thief. With James Caan, the Michael Mann thing. It's a small role. Those kind of roles are, good for actors to kind of, show their chops without having to carry an entire movie. He had also done a turn on a thing that was very similar to Twin Peaks, which was Bruce. Oh gosh, it was called Wild Palms, and it was I forget. I should have written this down, but we had so much info. Anyway, Wild Palms. It was a cartoonist, Bruce Wagner. He had done this comic strip. It was a very like kind of weird L.A. I don't even really know how to explain it, because it was so subtle. It had a political bent. It kind of touched into Scientology. It was produced. It was done for ABC in 1993. It was produced by Oliver Stone. Keith Gordon, Phil Giuliano, Catherine Bigelow directed. Jim Belushi was in it. Kim Cattrall, Robert Loggia, who obviously went on to work with Lynch as later on. It felt very David Lynch adjacent.
Sure.
In the sense that there was lots of hallucinatory kind of stuff. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've watched it. And it benefited from this kind of, people had been kind of not manipulated, but had been prepared for something a little bit weirder after Twin Peaks had been unceremoniously dumped. So it's kind of like, it'll be interesting. It might just be like, we don't know. These could be like, they could be playing themselves. They could be, doing, you know, whatever. My point is that before he became like this weird hybrid between his brother and Dan Aykroyd, he actually was a semi-serious actor.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's going to come out, you know, pull a harmonica out of his mouth and start blowing. But then again, you never know with David Lynch.
In the SNL oral history or whatever, the Tom Shales, and I can't remember who else did it with Tom Shales, about Saturday Night Live. He talks about it. Jim Belushi talks about it, about how basically his brother, John Belushi, didn't want him going into comedy because he was like, no, look, you're a good actor. You could be a big, you know, you could be really successful if you just stick to, you know, drama or whatever. But for some reason, Jim Belushi didn't want to do that. I guess when John Belushi is your brother, you want to follow in his footsteps, you know, in terms of what you do for a living. So he talks about that, about how, you know, John Belushi didn't even want his brother Jim to go into comedy. He probably should have listened.
I honestly will defend some of the stuff of his Saturday Night Live run. Nothing else.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, he was also in that weird 80s period of Saturday Night Live where it's like, okay, is this not working because of him in it, or is it not working because like nothing on that show is working at that time?
Well, he did do this thing where it was like they did a short film of a Bobby Knight-esque chess coach, which was Bobby Knight's the basketball.
Yeah, he used to coach Indiana University. He throws chairs on the court.
He did that sort of thing. It would be like this very quiet thing when they'd be sitting there doing thing, and then he would freak out and go, "Why don't you just give him the king? Give him the king!" And then he throws it. And I love that era of Saturday Night Live, even though I know it has been it was a strange time. So maybe it's my own affection. I know he's kind of become a self-parody, but
yeah. I mean, the other thing I'd say, and I don't think we have any evidence that this is happening, but if Twin Peaks, if Twin Peaks brought back Invitation to Love or an Invitation to Love type show that people on Twin Peaks are watching, I think Jim Belushi would actually be pretty fun in that.
Oh, you know,
that's my hope.
I didn't even think of that. It's like, that's actually pretty good. Yeah. That would be a good idea.
We'll see. I mean, some of these, his character's name is not listed in IMDb. I guess the returning folks, when it lists Twin Peaks on their IMDb page, it says their old character's name, but the new folks, it doesn't. Because that information isn't known yet. Before we move on real quick, I want to say one name we skipped over is Tammy Baird, who I looked up because I was like, oh, that sounds like a name that I should know. It's not, but she's a stunt woman. She does stunts on a bunch of TV shows and movies and stuff.
Okay.
But it's interesting because, you don't really think of the original Twin Peaks as being very stunt heavy.
Except for that one weird thing where the weasel Pine Weasel episode where it's all slapstick.
So there's the Pine Weasel stuff. I mean, I guess there are a couple fight scenes, fist fights in there. In Fire Walk with Me, there's some driving stunts, I guess, just a few. But you don't think of it as a very stunt heavy show, but it may be that we're getting more stunts in this new Twin Peaks, and I'm not sure how I would feel about that, honestly.
Exactly.
I don't know that what Twin Peaks needs is like people leaping from building to building in a chase, or even more fist fights or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is a thing where, like I was saying, that maybe Lynch is kind of like whoever that posted this is kind of like kind of a situation where it's like a We Merry Band kind of thing, where basically stunt people are listed on the same level as as actors. It's kind of like, I don't really know how this stuff works, but yeah, I don't know who knows how many stunts there is. I mean, what even constitutes a stunt? Sometimes walking into a door is considered a stunt. You don't make an actor do that because they might hurt their shoulder or something like that. But The other name is Richard Beymer, who would play Ben Horn.
Yeah, fantastic.
The
so good.
Duplicitous father of and the owner of the oh gosh, what is the name of the inn? the Falls.
For a time he owned One-Eyed Jack's.
Yes, the House of Ill Repute.
Yeah. He owned, I guess he never really owned the mill.
Anyway, I always confuse it because I live pretty close.
Horn's department store. He owned Horn's department store.
Oh, yes, he did.
And it'll come to me as long as I keep talking.
Exactly. But I mean, the reason I keep thinking is it's in real life. It was called
the Great Northern.
The Great Northern. It was called at the time. It was called the Snoqualmie Falls Lodge, and now it is called the Salish Lodge, which it served as the falls and the exterior of the show, and they never filmed interior. Maybe they might have for the pilot. There's a kind of a thing where the pilot episode, which actually was filmed more like a movie, has more interiors from North Bend and the surrounding town areas. But they went to series. They went and did exterior shots and then did the interiors in Los Angeles. So it's kind of like there's a difference. I don't know much about him aside from this. I mean, he's just one of those guys that shows up and stuff. And
yeah, and I mean, he on the initial DVD release, they have some interviews with all the actors, and I think he spends it. I mean, he talks a little bit about working on Twin Peaks, but then he also talks about like the time he went to the Amazon and like took a bunch of psychotropic drugs. And then,
I think I might
just,
need
like,
to go
tripping in the Amazon.
I think I might need to hunt this down.
The guy we're talking about. But I also remember he showed up on Murder, She Wrote a couple times, and I was always so delighted when I saw him.
Exactly.
Because I just like wanted him to be Ben Horn and do Ben Horny kind of things.
Ben Horny things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe this might. Well, no, we'll talk about that at the end. I was going to say, and then there's John Billingsley, who had not appeared previously, but nerds like me will know him best as Dr. Phlox on the ill-fated Star Trek prequel Enterprise. He was the ship's doctor. He's a character actor. He's been in everything.
Star Trek Enterprise was the Scott Bakula.
Yes.
Yes.
The much maligned, mainly because people didn't like the theme song, but
I'm sure that was the only reason.
Well, it was one of those examples of a show, and I won't go spend too much time on this. It's one of those shows that, if people had kind of given it a chance.
It's on for 4 years.
Yeah, well, guess what? There used to be like,
Star Trek Voyager was on for 7 years?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
That's
I thought everyone stopped watching it.
It was the UPN network, I think. Voyager was a UPN network, so it was literally the masthead for that network. Yeah. So it stayed on a lot longer. Yeah. I prefer Enterprise over Voyager any day. There was some stuff, it took a little while to get going, but then there was also this aspect of, there was TV, 10, 15 years ago, post 9/11 or whatever. Weird. It was hard because they did like a 9/11 type storyline on it. Anyway, we could go on. Then I don't want to get off topic.
But since I guess in addition to that, he was on. I just had it. Sorry. He was on the show True Blood.
Yes,
what it was. And he's done. He did an episode. He did a couple episodes of 24. He did a couple episodes of the new 90210. He did a couple episodes of Grey's Anatomy. So that guy.
He's like one of those kind of guys. Like he kind of occupies that same space. And no offense, because this actually meant as a compliment to these guys. Not that they listen, but Stephen Root, kind of.
Yeah, he's got that kind of face.
That kind of thing. Like you go. Oh my God,
it's
that
guy.
And then but you don't immediately go, oh, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think that's all we have from that first column. Do you have anybody that?
No, that was it for me.
So let's just go right to our next column. I'm going on. I forget I don't know. We're probably using the same list. It was the Deadline or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you guys are wanting to play along, it's on deadline.com.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Cera. Uh-oh. Not a Michael Cera fan?
It's fine.
Okay. I guess...
I'm worried that... And there are a couple of other people on this list. Like, I'm worried that he's just in it because he, like, told David Lynch what a big fan he is, and Lynch is like, yeah, sure, you can be on the show, whatever. And then...
I don't know. Do you think Lynch is really that... Do you think Lynch actually rewards that kind of stuff? I get the feeling that he only hires people that he likes.
Well, right. I mean, there has to be that too, but like
you can't kiss ass into a David Lynch production.
No, but I also don't know that like the casting process was the most rigorous. You know,
right,
like, I'm pretty sure like if David Lynch likes you, you're in the show. And so this is like, yeah, he likes Michael Cera.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, I like Michael Cera.
He's fine.
He was one of the guys that held out, and I always respect the fact that he was one of the guys that held out and didn't really particularly want to do Arrested Development.
That's true.
Which
that is
the minute whenever I think about this, I think about Arrested Development. That a thing I did not like I didn't wish they hadn't gone down that road. I'm glad that everybody got paid or whatever if they felt they didn't get paid, but artistically, it was one of those things where I kind of wish it didn't exist, which I'm really hoping this Twin Peaks thing isn't going to be something that I wish wouldn't exist after I see it.
Yeah.
Richard Chamberlain. Wow. It kind of makes me think. I was watching and I thought, oh, Richard Chamberlain. I mean, that guy was ubiquitous in the 70s with, Shogun and did he play Marco Polo too? You're Spike Before Your Time. I mean, that was the thing back in the day. It was like, the 70s, the late 70s, early 80s was that, or even the whole 70s. That was the era of the 4-part miniseries, Roots, Salem's Lot, all these great, like almost, movie level production, multi-night thing, which you can, now it's literally the equivalent of like when Netflix dumps an entire season online. I mean, it feels like, how people go, oh, Daredevil.
It's a television event that the whole country is involved with.
And I love that kind of stuff because it's like, I kind of go back and
it was Dr. Kildare.
Yes. Dr. Kildare. He was, he played the Thornbirds. That's another one he was thing. It's like these weird stories that you'd think that normally is like, do I really want to, a multi-decade story about a forbidden love affair in the wilds of Australia? And it's like, back in those days, they made them so good, you wanted to watch them. And I'm hoping that maybe he's trying to, I saw my wife's been watching, Damages, the Timothy Hutton thing. Mm-hmm. And he showed up on that. So he's still acting. In my mind, I always confuse him with Christopher Plummer, even though I think they're about 10-year age difference. Mm-hmm. But, he's got a certain way about him. And it's like, if they're doing like an Invitation to Love thing, maybe that's why he's in it. Or, we're all speculating at this point. I had Bailey Chase, and I don't know why.
He's been on a bunch of stuff. I just looked him up because, again, the name sounded familiar. I don't think I've seen anything he's in, but he was on Longmire.
Oh, yeah.
He's done a couple of other shows that I haven't seen, but I'm sure a lot of people have.
It's like one of these another one of these hard-working actor types that, it's like that whole... that documentary was on Netflix. Like it's something like called Hey You, that guy, or the guy who was in that thing. I don't think he was on that, but he kind of falls within that realm. These guys, they work, and it's like they bounce between, Vancouver and Burbank or whatever for years. And it's like later on you go, oh my God, this guy was in like 100 things. But the other one I'm saying is Candy Clark, who I have not
I don't know that name.
So Candy Clark, she was more of a set. She had a part in American Graffiti. If we're keeping it going, tipping back to the Lucas verse, she was kind of the not the love interest of what's his name? Oh God, he was like the quintessential nerd in. She was also in. Well, it doesn't matter. She was also in Blue Thunder, The Man Who Fell to Earth, the remake The Blob, which I actually prefer than the real Blob.
And she was in the remake of The Big Sleep as well, it looks like.
Oh, and she was also in the ill-fated sequel to American Graffiti, More American Graffiti.
Right.
So yeah,
she was in The Man Who Fell to Earth. She had a big role in that, it looks like.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that she was at one time. Oh, Charles Martin Smith was the guy I was thinking of. I didn't know she was actually married to Marjo Gortner at one point. That's crazy. That's wow. I don't know much about her. I know there's some extras on the DVD that I have of The Man Who Fell to Earth where she talks about working with David Bowie. I mean, she's got a lot of great stories. She's got a long history. She's been in dozens of things. It'll be nice to see a familiar face.
Yeah.
Next, I would say Scott Coffey. He is a returning cast member, and I'm trying to remember. I didn't make a note of who he played.
He was, who was
I see. When I see that face, it's like I totally recognize that face. But he's worked with Lynch on a lot of things. He's worked on Mulholland Drive. He worked on Lost Highway. So.
Yeah. It's not that it says he's a returning character, but he's not.
Yeah, he's not listed. That's what it was.
It's not listed.
I looked. He was not listed.
I mean, he's like you said, he's been in other Lynch things, but
yeah, he was.
Well, yeah, he played one of the rabbits in that rabbit short / when he put it in Inland Empire.
Yeah, his animated thing.
I don't remember who Wilkins was in Mulholland Drive.
But yeah, he's been around. He's some kind of.
He's part of the more recent Lynch players, I guess.
Right. So Catherine E. Coulson.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, it'll be a little sad.
So they must have filmed this before she died.
Yeah, that's what they've said. It'll be a little sad that, like, I assume she'll be in the show at some point, and then after a while she won't be in the show anymore with, very little explanation. And so that'll be kind of disappointing. But I'm glad that she was able to film some stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of
nice to have her there.
It's one of those things where when that show came out, and for people who don't remember, she played the Log Lady.
Mm-hmm.
She was obviously a part of that thing when it was on, but I think her role, her importance in the kind of mythology of the show increased when it was being rerun on Bravo, because she had actually filmed when you watch them on Bravo in the late 90s on cable, she would come in and she would kind of like have her. Did she have her log in the thing?
Yeah, she would do like monologues to introduce each episode.
Yeah,
and it would be about like, we eat when we're hungry. But do we eat because we're hungry? Like that kind of stuff that sometimes would be connected to the episode and sometimes would just be, right, like this is some weird beat poetry that someone found on
it was
scribbled on the back of a newspaper and then just decided to read it out loud for the first time.
There's a it's that grand tradition of kind of, which I don't even think exists anymore, when a television show, is kind of like they kind of reorganize it for another audience. That kind of, it was playing on that idea.
They just show more ads in front of it now is what they do.
Yeah. Back in the day when you would have, kind of like, it was parodied. This kind of thing was parodied. Well, I mean, I would consider these, as they call them, the Log Lady intros. Mm-hmm. This kind of thing had been parodied also again when, later on when Mike Nelson, when they did the cut down half-hour versions of MST3K,
the Mystery Science 3,
and he would come out as Jack. Was it Jack Perkins?
Yeah.
He would dress up in the thing, kind of very similar. And this idea that content would be like super curated. So you would like, not only would there be like, well, we're dumping this all on this thing. It's like, no, somebody had to come in and tell you, because
well, there too, like they were taking a 2-hour show and editing it down to 1 hour. So they kind of needed someone to come in and be like, hey, by the way, this is what this show is.
Exactly.
And this thing that you're seeing, and it's been heavily edited. It made sense at one point, and here's what it was.
And of course she was in Eraserhead, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she worked with Lynch for a long time.
And she was married to Jack Nance for
behind the camera
for a while too. So, Yeah, so that's like, again, with Jack Nance has obviously been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
That's going to be a presence that there will be no fish in the percolator.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go down to Julie Cruz.
Yay, Julie Cruz.
So Julie Cruz is one of those things where she obviously sang a lot in the theme song or the extended theme song.
Mm-hmm.
But she also had some acting, I think, in Fire Walk with Me. Was she singing?
Well, her acting was her singing on stage. And in the show, too, right? At least in season 2, her and her band, they showed on stage at the Roadhouse. Right, for when the giant shows up and he says, "It is happening again," with the cousin.
Yeah.
You know, the cousin, and doesn't she look like Laura Palmer?
Okay, yeah.
No.
So that it kind of makes me think that maybe I will fall under this again when we get to some of these other names that, I assume that since there has been a history of her, being on the soundtrack and performing, that at least her part might be a hybrid like that.
Yeah. I assume she'll be on the show, but she's not like a character.
Yeah, she won't be a character. So, I guess it's like, I don't really...
But it's nice to have her and whatever iteration of the band is back.
Do we know if Angelo Badalamenti is...
I don't know.
It's going to be weird if they don't have the theme.
Yeah. And and even not just the specific theme, but like...
Yeah.
Because if he wrote a new theme for this one, like that would make sense too. But if it's someone else entirely, that's going to be odd.
Yeah, and I haven't heard anything about him.
And it's not listed on his IMDb credits, but I assume that's because the IMDb page just got updated with whatever this list was. And since he's not an actor, it's not going to be...
Yeah, it almost gives me pause for some... Anyway, we'll get to this later.
Yeah. Jan Darcy.
Yeah, Jan Darcy.
The Sylvia Horn.
Sylvia Horn, who... Was she not...
Doesn't have a huge role in the show.
Yeah, doesn't she...
She's just kind of annoyed at Ben and mostly at Jerry.
And she's in a wheelchair.
No. That's
Space. Who am I thinking?
That's the other one. The other one.
Donna's mother.
Yeah.
Donna's mother. Sorry.
Oh
man, I can't believe I'm getting my stuff crossed. Mrs. Horn.
Yeah.
I don't really remember a lot about her, to be honest.
Right, because she doesn't have that big of a role. She's
Ben's
she's kind of there. She's mostly there to like show that Ben
has a wife.
What Ben does, Ben has a wife, and what he does like annoys the hell out of her, but they're still there.
Exactly.
So hopefully they give her a little more to do, because I think she played that role pretty well.
Yeah.
She seems like she's a decent enough actress. So yeah, I hope they give her a little more to do.
So Jeremy Davies,
who
we he's one of those guys. He's been around forever. He was an indie guy. He was in that one of the most uncomfortable movies I've ever seen in my life, called Spanking the Monkey. And he was also the guy who, in the 90s, famously tried to sell cars because it was like punk rock, but only cars. He kind of does a thing. He kind of does his he's a skinny dude with kind of beady eyes, and he kind of does a twitchy thing. That's what he.
So if you need a twitchy guy in a movie,
we used to call him the twitchy guy when he'd show up in
Private
movies.
Ryan or Twister or Dogville, Lost, Hannibal.
But that's all I really have.
Justified.
Exactly. Oh, I didn't know. I haven't gotten that far. I guess the next name I would say was Rebecca Del Rio, right? Who was a singer in. She sang that crying song in Spanish in Mulholland Drive. So it makes me. She didn't do any acting, so it makes me wonder if again that he's going to use these singers in these hallucinatory kind of thing.
Her performance was fantastic,
right?
Of that song, and so having her and Julie Cruz will be interesting to see. If either they do something together, it's kind of different vibes of their music, but or as sort of opposite vibe. You have Julie Cruz's music representing something and Rebecca Del Rio's vocals representing, an opposing force or some other kind of alternate.
Yeah, it should be interesting because it's like music is so important to his stories that he's not going to slip on that. Laura Dern, bringing it back to a Star Wars related Lynchian kind of thing. She's obviously, I would say, one of his muses. Yeah. I think he would probably. I don't know if he subscribes to the idea of the muse, but she has worked with him.
I think he does.
And, I mean, her energy has kind of like touched a lot of his stuff in the 80s and early 90s, and then there was a gap, and then she came back in an amazing turn in Inland Empire, which is this crazy movie that I watched and liked, but don't know if I understand it. But it's like, it shows she's got a range. I don't know how big of a role. I mean, I don't know what the filming is. I know that she has a pretty big part in Space Bear, as they say, episode 8. Yeah. So I don't know if this is a thing where it's like, are these roles going to be used as cameos? Are these going to be integrated into something else and filmed in different things? I don't actually know how much of this filming is taking place here in the Pacific Northwest, how much of it's if they're doing a mishmash.
Yeah. So
I'm excited.
I mean, you mentioned you don't know if he subscribes to the idea of a muse. I think he does, at least sometime. And the reason is, several years ago, I had to look it up because I had completely forgotten about it for the last 2 to 3 years. There's a singer who named Krista Bell.
I think I remember.
And I just looked it up. Who was supposedly his muse, and she put out an album called "This Train," which he produced and kind of drove the sound of. But when she did interviews, when they were promoting the album, like, it was explicit, like, oh, she's David Lynch's new muse, and so she actually is on this list. The reason I didn't mention her earlier is because I had completely forgotten about her until you just said the word muse. And I was like, oh, right, that lady. So she'll be in this too. So now if you have her and Julie Cruz and Rebecca Del Rio, so then maybe the sound of the show isn't going to be as kind of unified as it was when it was just Angela Badalamenti and Julie Cruz and her group doing the music. It may not just. I'm sure it'll feel Lynchian because these are all people that he's been involved with before, but it maybe won't be as unified as the original Twin Peaks if you have all of these different musicians contributing to it.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wonder. It's like, I mean, I don't want to go off on this huge theory because I could probably eat up the rest of the show talking about, like, I was thinking about Lynch a lot about, I'm not super familiar with his very, very early work, and Eraserhead, aside from being kind of weird and disturbing, isn't something that I've personally returned to a lot, mainly because it is so disturbing.
Yeah.
But it's like that kind of idea where he had his Pacific Northwest ideas, where it's like movies that being a Washingtonian, even though he's an Eastern Washingtonian, and people might not know that there's a difference, but there really kind of is. It's an experience. I mean, even even in the mythology, Twin Peaks, even though it's 45 minutes east of Seattle where they filmed it, in actuality it's in the upper eastern, northeastern part of the state, in this area called the Okanagan Highlands, is what in the mythology. That's why you can cross over to Idaho. That's why you can easily cross over to Canada in certain aspects of it. But anyway, it's like that, and then he kind of later on, it's Inland Empire, it's Wild at Heart, kind of. Who's the movie he did with Pullman? Lost Highway. Very LA kind of the. Of course, Mulholland Drive. I mean, the mythologies of LA in the movie industry. It's like those separate parts. And I feel like he's kind of moved away from his roots of depicting stories of the seedy underbellies that exist in like rural Washington, right into the underbelly of Los Angeles. It'll be interesting to see if maybe that way he depicts things now will kind of come back and re-infiltrate how he wants to depict Twin Peaks. It's that kind of like, it's like isolated, even though they've always talked about, like, if you look at the sign, it says it's a 52,000 person city. And that was a weird concession from ABC. For some reason, they didn't like the idea that it was going to be, was it 5,000 or was it 15,000? Like it was supposed to be a very small town. And for some reason, they felt that it wouldn't track well, so they changed it. Yeah. And in its heart, Twin Peaks is like a 15,000 person town kind of thing, even though they say it's a 50. And I'm kind of wondering how that will cross pollinate, I wouldn't sit here and like, I understand how Lynch does things, but it almost wonders if that's using Del Rio and because she's probably will be singing in Spanish or whatever, maybe not. That idea kind of mixed back and really cross pollinates. Hugh Dillon, the only thing I would say about Hugh Dillon is I think he's a Canadian actor. He was famous for a Canadian mockumentary that a friend of mine introduced me to a long time ago called Hardcore Logo, and it's a great performance. If you're interested in him, just go out. I don't know who he's playing in this. He's not a returning cast member.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, Hardcore Logo. It's worth if you're like mockumentaries that are kind of not like Spinal Tap but more serious. Hardcore Logo is worth checking out. Do you have anybody before Duchovny that you want?
No.
So David Duchovny.
Yeah.
This will be interesting.
Yeah.
Because his portrayal of
Dennis / Denise Bryson.
Yeah, it's kind of It was very
for its time.
Its time, it was very forward thinking.
Yeah,
but I would say that that there wasn't a lot of. No, there was. I'll be honest. I haven't sat back and watched those episodes in a very long time, so I could be completely wrong. I don't remember that she was ever played as a punchline to anything. Only to certain people's discomfort about transgender lives and because it's small towns and things
and those people who were uncomfortable, like it was pretty clear that like they were being ridiculous.
Yeah, it was kind of like playing on the own fact that essentially he was playing a very attractive woman and it made small town people uncomfortable about their things. So I mean, I don't know if that's a thing that Lynch likes to play with necessarily. Like he likes to be quote topical,
right?
It'll be interesting. It was it was kind of ahead of its time, but since it was kind of thrown into a show that was kind of strange, it's not one of those things that where like they were really going to make a grand commentary about gender and changes in society. But I mean, I hope his turn is better than. I was not a big fan of this X-Files event, as they called it. There was a couple good episodes, but it kind of bummed me out about how they really changed the tone of it. But I won't go into an X-Files thing. Next person I have on my list is Francesca Eastwood. And the only reason I bring her up is that she is apparently Clint Eastwood's daughter.
Huh.
With Frances Fisher, and she is on a reality show, which I didn't know that there was a reality show involving Clint Eastwood's children, which really seems out of character for Clint Eastwood to allow his name. Maybe he doesn't have a choice. Yeah. I know he's not with Frances Fisher, so I guess it doesn't even matter.
If she legally changes her name to Eastwood, he can't really do anything about that.
Exactly. Eric Edelstein, who I think is a comedic actor. I'm not particularly. His name sounds really familiar. I did some Googling and I couldn't quite point out anything I was particularly familiar with.
He was in Jurassic World.
Okay. And
he was in. Not much else that I am familiar with. A TV show called Complications, whatever that was.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. So
TV show Monsters vs. Aliens. Yeah, I'm not seeing a lot of stuff I know on this.
So I guess next up would be John Ennis from Mr. Show, and who has been.
I think he could be really, really good on Twin Peaks.
Yeah, he's kind of like one of those.
Like not just like funny in his own way, but like fit within the context of the show and be really good.
And he was in the reboot, right? He was participating in
with. You mean
Bob
with
and David?
Bob and David?
Yeah.
I believe so.
I guess it technically is not Mr. Show.
A lot of the
That was I liked.
A lot of the original people on Mr. Show were on with Bob and David, but they were in like 2 sketches. So,
right.
I think he was involved, but like he didn't show up that much.
Yeah, I mean, John Ennis is. I think he's a comedian, but he also does do. Excuse me. He was in Zodiac, and he's been in some low budget stuff, some mid budget stuff. He was famous, well, not famously, but he was also. I remember he was a character in the ill-fated Aaron Sorkin Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip.
Yeah, that's
show.
Right. I forgot he was in that.
Yeah, I was kind of like his big break as far as raising his visibility. I mean, I've always thought he was great on Mr. Show. He seems to be kind of tipping more towards a serious acting, or
I think he has been, or he was teaching acting.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. He's an acting coach and teacher and stuff like that. So who knows? Either maybe he's there on set helping people out. Maybe he's got a role. I mean, I don't know how that works.
I think he probably has a role. I think
maybe it's a little bit of both. I'm kind of like I was listening to this interview, and I was listening to some kind of interview with a guy from The Sopranos yesterday, and he was kind of saying like, a lot of the actors you think are like, they're just an island and they came up with this themselves. They all have coaches. Like even even Pacino has a coach because it's like it's a skill.
Right.
So I don't know what my point is. I just thought it was interesting. Josh Fadem, who's a comedian that I became aware of mainly only because I was like one of the last. I was in LA and I was looking for live shows, and for some reason he did a show in the basement of a Ramada Inn, in a bar with like $12 beers. But it was him and like a lot of the people that have gone on to be. I think in that night I saw Kate McCucci and Eric Charles Nielsen. I mean, a lot of people that have been in sitcoms and stuff right now. And Josh was kind of his. I saw him like 2 or 3 times that week because he kept being at these shows. So he had done a complete different thing every time. It was like he did a show, hosted a show in the basement. Then like I saw him at the UCB and he was doing like, it was Halloween and he was in full makeup, like a zombie, like doing this weird riff with a sound thing. And he was pulling, cause I guess at the time he worked at a video store and he'd pull out these weird movies like out of a bag. And it was like, he's like one of those guys. He's really, I think he's been in a lot more, and I haven't really kept on and stuff, but he has done a lot of episodic television.
Yeah. Did an episode of Eagleheart.
Yes. And of course.
And he's been working on the Eric Andre show, I think mostly as a writer for some stuff. I don't know how heavily he's involved or if he just like pitches jokes periodically. But he has been involved in the Eric Andre show as well.
So I'm excited to see what he's got to do.
Yeah, I could see him. He has a different kind of energy, but I could see him almost like a David Lander type of role.
David Lander. I've got to look that up now.
He was Squiggy.
Oh, of course.
And then he was in the original Twin Peaks.
I love David Lander. I don't know why I was like, David Lander.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But so I could see Josh Fadem maybe doing something like that.
Hello,
he's also apparently on Better Call Saul right now. So
okay. And then, of course, Sherilyn Fenn.
Of course.
Audrey Horne.
Yeah.
I don't want to say this, but it's like, at that time, there was no other, she was kind of the it girl as far as like, Rolling Stone magazine. She was part of that thing. It was just like, Where has she been?
Because especially on the show, they had her wearing the sweaters the plaid skirts and the saddle shoes, and
she was like a recreation of the kind of girls that guys probably put pictures up inside of B-52 bombers when they were running bombing runs in World War II, kind of designed for the end of the 20th century kind of thing. So it was like that kind of idea of, I mean, you probably all, if you're listening to this, you've probably already seen Twin Peaks. But I mean, she was a woman, but she was a child, and it's like she would never know. She thought she could, do whatever with her smile, and then later on you'd find out that no, she would get into real trouble, and that kind of thing. It was a great role for her. I mean, sadly, she never got. I was always really bummed that she was never in Firewalk with Me. I think it was just a weird scheduling thing, which kind of happened at that time. And she's done a lot of episodic television. I'll be interested to see what see what they're going to do with that character, because obviously she's not a teenager, and she never was at the time, but she's a mature woman, still beautiful. It'll be interesting what they're going to maybe give her a chance to expand the role, and who knows. I mean,
it's interesting because you really did have two generations on that show, right? You had Laura Palmer's high school peers, and then you had their parents, essentially. But they're bringing back both generations. So it's and the parents were the ones who were kind of in charge of the town. You had the guy who ran the department store and the hotel. You had, the guy who was in the military. You had, the woman who ran the diner. So the parents' generation was who was in charge of this town. And so if they're bringing back both generations, okay, so is that older generation? Are they still in charge of stuff? Or has, the Audrey Horne, Bobby Briggs generation, are they kind of, in the leadership positions now, and it's their parents are just kind of still hanging around, so my uncle is actually the mayor of the town he grew up in New Jersey now.
Oh, wow.
And apparently my grandfather won't stop bugging him about stuff that he wants or needs from maybe won't stop bugging him is an exaggeration. And my uncle was on the city council too, and my grandfather would show up at the city council meeting with complaints about stuff he didn't like, and my uncle would just have to and everyone would look at him as are you going to take care of this? So I think it would be kind of funny to have some of those dynamics going on.
That actually would be kind of interesting, because I mean, as far as I remember, the Audrey Horne character, when she kind of was nearing, she had been kind of after the whole One-Eyed Jack's sub thing. She had kind of been waylaid, kind of.
Yeah, I think they just weren't really sure what to do with her.
But she had also
it was pretty clear that she wasn't going to get with Cooper, so they couldn't keep stringing that along.
Right.
But they weren't really sure. Well, we need, she's this attractive girl, we need to give her male interests, or potential interests, and so is she gonna get with Bobby? Is she gonna get with Billy Zane? What's gonna happen? And
God, I forgot Billy Zane was
so I think they just as with a lot of things and a lot of characters in season 2, they kind of ran out of things to do with her, or they weren't really sure what they were going to do with her.
I think there had been a little bit about the idea that she was starting to get a lot interested in the kind of work that her father did.
Right.
And so
she was going to sort of buckle down and take the family business seriously.
So it's that kind of thing where she, maybe she'll own the lodge, or she'll be the entrepreneur or whatever. It'll be interesting. It's if he wants to pick up those threads, I will be excited to see what he has to say about it. J.R. Ferguson, which we would know him from Mad Men, not the guitar player from Sloane, but the
important distinction to make.
Yes. Well, there's also a Jay Ferguson that wrote this yacht rock song in the 80s called Thunder Island. So there's actually 3 Jay Fergusons.
So that's why he's J.R. Ferguson,
right? And so he was Peggy's love interest in the last season. He was the tall guy that like had a beard and had a love of turquoise. He's good. I'll be interested to see what he's got to say. I don't know what else to say. Sky
Ferreira is a singer and an actress.
So again, it's that thing where it's like, are they going to be, or I guess my point is
she on this as a singer or is she on this as an actress?
Right.
She has sort of a similar look to Julie Cruz a little bit.
Okay.
Or, kind of like an updated version of Julie Cruz. That's not what her music sounds like. So I actually saw her perform at South by Southwest a couple of years ago, and she was okay. But then, like, the next day, she had to start canceling stuff because she lost her voice. So I think when I saw her voice was probably weak. Because, South by Southwest, a lot of bands, like, they're performing, I don't know, half a dozen times in 2 days. So... her music's pretty good. It's decent. She had a lot of more buzz around her around that time. So like 2013, maybe 14. And that's kind of died down a little bit. So I don't know if she's focusing on acting.
Yeah, it looks kind of like that because she was in the Green Inferno, which was who's the guy? Who's the horror guy? Who's it's kind of it was a kind of a weird remake of Cannibal Holocaust. That was it was a kind of a controversial movie. And she's in something called The Trust, and I guess she had to turn in this new Elvis and Nixon movie that Amazon has done. So yeah, I think she's actually
Wait, a new what?
Oh, you didn't know this?
No.
Oh darn it, what's it called? I have to look it up now. I'm sorry, I'm so old. I have to like look these things. Oh, maybe it's not playing. Oh, maybe it's an Amazon sponsor movie, but it's playing in some theaters or something.
Elvis and Nixon.
Yeah, it's
is what it's called. It is a 2016 American comedy drama.
Michael Shannon as Elvis and Kevin Spacey as Nixon. Yeah,
focusing on that meeting that like the Simpsons made fun of it. They made fun of that, I think, or like the fact that there's that photograph of the two of them shaking hands pops up all over different. And comedy shows, writers later.
And he got that DEA badge to carry that when he was whacked out of his mind on the goofballs.
Johnny Knoxville is in it. Colin Hanks is in it.
Yeah, I think you can actually... I don't know. I thought it was actually, if you had Amazon Prime, I think you can watch it. But I've heard some reviews, on Twitter of some people I follow, and they said it was good. So I might check it out this weekend.
Carrie Elvis is one of the writers of Elvis and Nixon, apparently.
Oh, wow. Hey.
Sure.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So I think I think before we started the show, we were both really excited about this casting, is the return of Miguel Ferrer.
Yeah. We love Miguel Ferrer.
Oh, God. So, we were talking about it because the idea that he refers to this, he was like
Senior Drool Cup.
Senior Drool Cup, which was a thing that the character is actually credited as that. That was a running joke in college for us. We used to refer to if you'd have to deal with some kind of doddering, because you're a kid and you think, I'm never getting old. Some old person that wasn't moving fast enough, we'd refer to them as a Senior Drool Cup. Not obviously not to their face because we're passive aggressive little shits, but it's that. His character, and oh gosh, what was the name of his character on this? And he didn't show up did he show up on the second season, or was he right off the first?
No, he was pretty early in the first season.
Yeah, he was the no nonsense kind of yin to the yang of Dale.
Albert. Yeah, Albert Rosenfeld.
Albert Rosenfeld. Whereas Cooper was believed in prophecy and chaos and
Tibet and.
Albert Rosenfeld was like a no bullshit kind of guy. Right. Hated small towns, had absolute contempt for everyone and everything, to the point where it later on it became he had a physical altercation with Sheriff Harry S. Truman. Mm-hmm. He just the way he I've always been a fan of him. Of course, he's from a showbiz family. I think. Mm-hmm. Which one is it? Mel Ferrer or Jose Ferrer is his father? One of the Ferrer brothers.
That's a good question. I always assumed it was Jose, but maybe it's not.
Yeah, it's like this. So anyway, he just has.
It's Jose
Ferrer.
Jose Ferrer and Rosemary Clooney.
Yes, and he's George Clooney's cousin, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But he added a kind of anchor to the craziness of that show,
right?
That kind of kept it from spinning off into. I mean, I love David Lynch, and I love the hallucinatory things. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff that he might tell you, well, it's supposed to be interpreted exactly this way, but it's kind of hard. And he was able to kind of put a pin in some of this absurdity and kind of come in almost like an angry cipher for the audience and being like, what is this crazy shit on ABC on a Sunday night in 1990?
Yeah. Well, because even, I mean, in his character, Albert Rosenfeld would make fun of Gordon Cole, who was David Lynch's character, and kind of like, just kind of mock the fact that he had to talk super loud. Exactly. And his accent as well, his that kind of flat, big sky Midwest accent. He mocked a couple times on the show. So you're right. He was like, this is,
and then of course
this is completely ridiculous, and I'm going to make fun of it.
It'll be interesting because as we left Albert Rosenfeld, he'd actually had a kind of a conversion, and he had been struck in the face by Harry S. Truman because of his mouth. And it kind of almost set him upon this path of where he embraced Buddhism. And
see, I think he was always like that. I think he always, he was a pacifist.
Okay.
But so he just used sarcasm as like a shield.
All right.
And then, so I think he was, he was like, oh, I follow the footsteps of Gandhi and King and whatever.
Yeah.
I think my interpretation was that he was always that way. But he was just like, he was really sarcastic because he was smart and he knew it, and as sort of a shield against like all this cynicism around and about violence and everything around him. And so he just kept goading, when he worked at the FBI or at headquarters or whatever, he can normally get away with it. But then he ran up into like someone or a couple people who just finally couldn't take it and punched him. And so then he had to explain himself. And then once he did that, I guess I am also assuming, or my theory is that there were several like off-screen conversations between these two characters that we don't see, where they like really hash things out and they became friends after that.
Yeah, so it's kind of it'd be interesting. It's like you might not get I don't know. Did he kind of drop the sardonic stuff after that? I mean, I think
there's a little bit. I mean, there's still a little bit of it.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting.
It was mostly aimed at Gordon Cole, I think.
But then again, Fire Walk with Me, incredibly small role, so we don't know what the thing. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen him on anything since he played like a medical examiner on some TV show, so it's kind of been like a while. So then there's Robin Fink, who I will only say that this is kind of a good example of he's a musician. He played with Guns N' Roses for a while. He's been Trent Reznor's touring guitar player for a long time. Yeah.
We'll get to later.
Yeah, and it just makes me wonder if maybe Lynch is putting in people that are contributing to the soundtrack as cast.
Yeah, that's possible.
And that they won't actually have a role to play.
Yeah, because I guess we'll jump ahead. Because Trent Reznor is also on this list.
Yeah. And his wife, who is Mara Queen Reznor.
Oh, okay.
She's a singer, and she has.
I didn't know if that was like his daughter or something.
Yeah. What's the name? He has another band. I don't know if she's part of Nine Inch Nails. I'm not really a huge Trent Reznor fan, but I know that he did a spin-off band because she was in a LA band called West Indian Girl that was getting a lot of buzz, and then she got married to Reznor, and she kind of dumped that band and kind of went off, and they created a super group or something. So it makes me wonder if maybe Reznor and Mara Queen and this Fink guy, that they're maybe they could easily be performing in this, but they also might be this idea that if you contribute to the soundtrack, you're contributing to the cast, so I'll just list you as such. So I mean, it remains to be seen. So there's Brian Finney, which I made a note of only because he is a character actor that has supposedly, I think, actually had been in Fire Walk with Me, but his scenes had all been deleted. So he actually only appears in the in the deleted scene thing that I've not watched. So it's kind of like he is returning, but if this might be the first time, God knows he might get cut out again, that he has returned to the fold. I don't know much about him otherwise. There is also
Robert Forster.
Yeah, Robert Forster, the character.
Erica Forster, who I assume is related.
No, they're not, actually, believe it or not. Then there's Meg Foster, who you might remember as the lady with the kind of the icy blue eyes that was in They Live. Warren Frost. What do we know Warren Frost from? He is a returning...
He was one of the writers, wasn't he?
Was that it?
I'm sorry. Warren Frost is Donna Hayward's father, Dr. Hayward.
Oh, that's it. And I was wondering if he is coming back. And so, he's 90, so it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with him. I don't have a lot to say. Let's skip down.
Because, again, last time we saw him, he was punching out Ben Horn, I think.
Oh, yeah. Jeez.
Right? So, is that going to get resolved? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or are they just going to move past it and be like, well, this is the new normal and you're going to have to keep up.
Well, now, one thing I'm excited to see is that Brett Gelman has been cast. I don't know anything about it.
I was so excited when I saw that. He's perfect for this show.
Yes. It's going to be, well, obviously, and we all know from his participation in Eagleheart, he's a guy with some range and comedic, and he can do serious stuff too.
Yeah, but especially the dinner with series.
Yeah, just a quick aside. I won't get into it. I know somebody that has maybe seen some of the next one, and I'm not going to talk anything about it just to say that they said they saw it and they said it was really good. So
I'm not surprised. They're all
not that we were worried. But It's just the word on the street. It's something else. Anyway, I don't want to get into that stuff because it's none of my business yet. Balthazar Getty, who is kind of like he was in
Lost Highway.
Yeah, Lost Highway. He was like the second Young Guns. He's like one of those guys. He's just been around. It's like he kind of was the pretty faced kid kind of thing. I don't know much of. I mean, he's probably another one of these kind of muses or something that he falls within that realm of people that Lynch likes.
Yeah, and I wonder if there was just sort of an open invitation to like, hey, if you've worked with David Lynch before and you're interested in doing it again, let me know and we'll put you on the show. What's his name? David Foster Wallace wrote a behind the scenes kind of not completely behind the scenes, but like he went and spent a couple days on the set of Lost Highway and just kind of wrote about it. That piece kind of portrays Balthazar Getty as kind of a jerk.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Right, that was probably at the height of Balthazar Getty's pull in Hollywood. So he may have had his ego inflated then. But also, right, David Foster Wallace himself was not the easiest person to get along with. And so, how much of that was filtered through David Foster Wallace's own personal, and even if he was a good guy, he was easy to get along with. How much of that was filtered through his own personal interactions with Balthazar Getty, who knows? I thought that was interesting to see that on there.
And then we have Harry Goaz, who played Deputy Andy, which, you can't have it without Deputy Andy. I don't know much of... I'm sorry, what?
I said, of course not.
Yes. There's not a lot to say about that. Of course, if he could come back, it'd be great. Just a quick aside about this Grant Goodeve, which probably nobody even remembers him, and that's only because he kind of reached his apex in a drama in the 70s, early 80s called 8 is Enough, which was a Dick Van Patten kind of late 70s. A lot of people like these family dramas were starting to come out a lot, like the kind of the things that really affect families in the late 70s and 80s. Yeah. I will say the connection that I wonder, and I speculated to another person on Twitter, is that he actually hosts a local program here called Northwest Backroads, and it's just all about little parts of the state that you may not be aware of. Sorry, there's a fire truck going right by the house. So it's like he goes out to he would maybe there's going to be a meta kind of thing where it's going to be like, I'm Grant Goody, Northwest Backroads. We're coming out to Twin Peaks today to look at the falls and that kind of stuff. So I'm wondering if that might be it, but that's just pure speculation on my part. We have also Andrea Hayes.
Yeah. She was Heidi, who was in she maybe had 2 lines in the whole show.
All right. Well,
I mean, maybe she has more. She's in the missing pieces, apparently. She was the kind of German or Germanic woman who, they made some joke about her having sex with her husband or something, and she, giggled and walked away.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's who Heidi was. But so she's back. So that's why I think there might have been just open invitation. If you were on Twin Peaks or if you've done anything with David Lynch, you're welcome, come on down and we'll put you on the show.
Right. Then we have Gary Hirschberger, who was one of Bobby's shitty friends. We have Michael Horse, who was a deputy.
Yeah.
Native American.
Hawks.
Yeah, Hawk.
Which Hawk was great. He was really good on the show.
He always he would kind of bring
I kind of hope they give him more to do.
That kind of because it's I could go on and I won't, but this idea that a lot of the supernatural aspects of this stuff taps back into First Nation legends and the idea that maybe Bob is a manifestation of some kind of evil that they've been dealing with since before Europe, came and whatever. But it'll be nice to see if he's got kind of more of the same kind of role he had before.
So, one person we won't be mentioning is Michael Ontkean, who is not on this list. And so who's the sheriff now?
Yeah,
Is it Hawk? Is it Andy? Is it someone else entirely?
I hope it's not Andy.
Yeah.
It's unless they're going for that kind of Twin Pines kind of Back to the Future 2 kind of dystopia. Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, that's cool. Maybe he's the new sheriff.
Yeah, that'd be. I love.
Or he could be like a FBI agent or something.
I love some Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
He's. I don't know. We haven't heard much about it. Remains to be seen. The only other one on this page I will say is Jesse Johnson, only because he is the son of Don Johnson. So we have a little bit more, another one of these famous sons. But that, a lot of people end up entering the family business anyway. So I don't know if it really matters.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of that, could be, like we've said, that, since Lynch has spent so much time in L.A. and made movies about L.A. and everything, how much of, is he putting, he met Don Johnson once, and Don Johnson seems nice, and his son's an actor, so we'll put him in the show, or, whatever, versus, like you said, just, he went into the business, and he's working his way up, and he has a smallish part on the show.
So, Ashley Judd.
Ashley Judd.
I don't know how I was able to skip
I just saw that, yeah.
Wow.
Huh. All right.
Hey, if Ashley Judd's, her career has kind of been a little. I haven't seen her in a lot. I mean, I think the best performance she ever did was William Friedkin made a movie called Bug a few years ago, and it is a tour de force. I think it's her and, believe it or not, Harry Connick Jr.
Okay.
And it's a crazy thing about a man that's basically fried his brain out on speed, and his kind of gets to the point where he spends time with this girl who lives and she starts to kind of adopt his delusions, but I'll leave it at that. David Patrick Kelly.
Yeah.
Who was
Jerry Horn,
who, I loved him from when I was growing up, from the movie The Warriors, and even, what else was he in? Dreamscape with Dennis Quaid, which was a crazy movie about people going into people's dreams and stuff. But
and was he in Lost Highway, or was he in Wild at Heart? He was in Wild at Heart.
Wild at Heart.
Okay. I think those might be the only two. That's the only other Lynch thing he's done.
And kind of in that same space, Robert Knepper, who is a character actor you might know him if you ever watched the show Prison Break. He had the nickname Teabag, and once you see him, he's he also did a show about something to do about cults or something recently. I can't remember. It was kind of ahead of its time. It was like one of these syndicated shows where it was about I think he might have been a cult leader who had disappeared. So his entire role was told in flashbacks. Mm-hmm. So, he's like one of these great guys. The minute you see him, you'll go, oh, I know that guy. Yeah. And then another bit of strange casting is David Koechner.
Yeah. And I also just saw him.
And, I'm a fan. If you ever need to see that the guy can do comedy, obviously. Yeah. But then he can also, if you ever seen Cheap Thrills, which is him and Pat Healy from Eagle Heart, did this movie, and it's dark. It's a dark movie, but it's worth a watch if you like that kind of thing.
But yeah, I for him, I could see him sort of playing, similar to his character in Anchorman, that kind of like cowboy hat, good old boy guy, but played like straight essentially. And played straight, but done so as like to be this like kind of weird energy in the show. But, I could see that, or I could see him just being like, oh, I'm just a nice, friendly shop owner. Hello, Dana Ashbrook, how are you today? And just, just playing a complete, I could see him, there isn't a lot of stuff that's played explicitly for laughs in David Lynch and Twin Peaks being part of that. There's some stuff, certainly, but a lot of the stuff that's funny it's just because it's like, oh, that's out of place, or something like that. And so I could see him just being like, oh, it's a little out of place, okay, but that's still pretty funny. So we'll see what he does.
So of course it can't be Twin Peaks without Cheryl Lee returning, right, even though every character she's played is dead. Yeah. But
I mean, I guess if we're,
you're in the lodge, you're in the Black
she
Lodge.
Could be in the lodge, or, we get to learn what happened to her soul after the events of Fire Walk with Me, or I guess the events of season 2. Considering she played 2 different characters on the show, perhaps she's playing a third character.
Yeah, exactly.
Who just looks a lot like Laura Palmer. Like, oh, that cousin who doesn't she look a lot like Laura Palmer that, the man from the place talked about, he was referring to this other cousin, and exactly. The fact that the one cousin looked like her, that's just a coincidence.
So I guess I should keep moving. Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Great. She'll be great.
Yes. Matthew Lillard, which I think is kind of, he's like one of those guys. He's done some pretty good stuff. I know everybody thinks of him as kind of like this goofy guy from the Scream movies, or playing Shaggy.
His early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, he's SLC Punk he does a really good turn in that. I haven't really seen a lot of stuff since he's, kind of become an older adult. I haven't really kept up with it. But I'll be excited to see what he's got going. Peggy Lipton, who was Peggy Lipton?
She ran the Double R Diner.
Yes. So
Rashida Jones's mother. I'm a little surprised Rashida Jones is going to be in it. Considering multiple generations.
Oh, I forgot. I didn't know that was her mom.
Yep.
Wow.
She was good. Her character Norma. She was the character or one of the characters who imbued Twin Peaks with that kind of like classical soap opera.
Yes. She had an ex-con husband.
Right. There were like a bunch of different things going on in Twin Peaks, and one of which was like, okay, this is partly a soap opera, and her character and her character storylines were sort of the soap opera side of the show.
Yeah, so I'm, again, it's one of those things. I forget who played her husband and what happened. I can't remember whether he got killed or something. I think he might have.
Hank. Yeah, he was sent back to prison.
Oh, okay, that's
and they weren't going to parole him. He violated parole, and so he went back to prison.
So we don't have to worry about him showing up.
Yeah, but I mean, so I know we have a lot of names to get through. Oh my God, I just saw one. Oh my God.
What?
All right, we'll have to talk about that.
Okay. David Lynch, obviously.
No, I was going to say with Peggy Lipton, the soap opera vibe of the show, that I wonder how that's going to play. If they keep that aspect of it, I wonder how that will play today versus, 25 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, whether that same vibe, like people will still kind of rock with it, or whether, you know, that kind of soap opera feel, you know, that what was it called? Desperate Housewives kind of picked up and ran with, and you see it on some other shows, but there's a slightly different inflection to it. And I assume that soap operas today are different than they were in like the 80s, and so the rhythms of,
not from what I've heard, but
okay. So, you know, but just the rhythm that soap opera piece adds to this, if they keep it, like, I just wonder how fans will receive that, or people who are just getting into Twin Peaks for the first time, like how that will be received today versus, you know, in 1990. Anyway, so we have the return of David Lynch, and it looks like Riley or Shane Lynch. I mean, I think they're relations. They might be. I know one of them is his son, and another one might be his grandson or something like that. So he's keeping it in the family with them. I mean, I assume that means, unless he's going against this theory that somehow everybody who contributes is a cast member, even if they're not acting. Yeah, because this would be his only acting role. I mean, he worked construction. He was part of the construction team for Inland Empire. Okay. I'm sorry, this is Riley Lynch I'm talking about. And then Shane Lynch is... so the first Shane Lynch that comes up is... looks like she may not be related. The stepdaughter of screenwriter Mitch Glazer, daughter of actress Kelly Lynch. If it's the same Shane Lynch, and this is listed on her IMDb page. Oh. So she played the coat check girl on the Bill Murray Christmas special. She played Liv on the 2010 version of 90210. She also doesn't have a ton of acting credits, but it looks like she is unrelated to David Lynch.
Okay,
but Riley, I'm guessing that he's on the crew in some respect, but they just put him on the list.
Cool. And so I guess we'll probably be seeing Gordon Cole, maybe. Or maybe not.
Or at least hear him in the very least.
Exactly. Let's hope he hasn't gotten a better hearing aid, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know people are going to react to that in 2016. People are more, you know, sensitive about the idea that people might, you know, you make fun of somebody's you know, difficulties and stuff like that, or maybe Lynch is, you know, maybe he just doesn't care. Not that he's trying to be hurtful. It's just that that's the character and that's what he does.
Well, I mean, I think it's time specific in the sense that, like, I guess you could find hearing aids that sort of still looked like that in the late 80s, early 90s, where it was these, you know, it basically looked like headphones, earbuds connected to this box that you control that way. Whereas that's not what the technology is like anymore. So you can't really get the same punchline or the same, you know, visual kind of humor out of it.
Right.
To the extent that that's what they were going for. Whether you find that funny or not is up to you, but that's what they were going for. It's kind of like the visual gag of it.
Right.
And so, like, you just can't do that. That's just not the way the technology works anymore, and so you're not going to get that same visual gag. So that's why I wonder if, like, well, maybe we'll just hear his voice or something.
And speaking of, you know, we've mentioned muses so many times, and I don't mean Jason Mewes. Kyle MacLachlan, of course. I mean, you kind of couldn't do it without him.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you could, but it would kind of take the heart out of it, because he was kind of.
Well, and I think everyone who would be watching would just be wondering, like, where is he? What is he doing? Like, how are you just going to drop that story and just move on, right? And so I think, and so it would kind of detract from watching it, because you just constantly be thinking about it, like, well, what happened? What happened to Cooper? Like, why isn't Cooper on the show? Like, how did that work? Why aren't they talking about it anymore?
Yeah, I mean, we left him in a weird spot. I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, the final scene of the final episode is, you know, Dale Cooper driving his forehead into into the glass and
possessed by the spirit of Bob.
And, you know, going, Annie, my name's Annie, that kind of thing.
Where's Annie?
Where's Annie? Yeah, that thing. And so, you know, that's the jumping off point. You know, I remember more than 25 years ago. Oh, God. No, 20 years. Sorry, 20 years ago. Sitting in a Denny's, and after we watched that, like trying to theorize, like what was the next step? Where does he go? That kind of thing. So I've been waiting for this for a long time to see, where Dale Cooper is now post, is he still possessed by Bob? Is this a thing that he had taken care of? What is Bob going to be? Obviously, since Bob isn't, the actor that played Bob isn't even around anymore. He passed away a long time ago. It remains to be seen. James Marshall, I think, is the next name of note. Who is James? I mean, he was always kind of an interesting character on the show.
Was he?
Interesting in the sense that he wasn't interesting. He had this kind of he's like that guy that seems to he's living in the wrong decade. He's trying to be
right.
He's trying to be James Dean. He's trying to be Marlon Brando. He's trying to be who's the guy with the From Here to Eternity guy, the young guy. But he was very weepy. It's you get a lot of backstory. It's one of the fun things about Twin Peaks is I think it was the first meta property on television where you actually got a little bit more by going and hunting down your copy of The Secret Diary of Laura Palmer, which generally, even when we talk about Star Wars, I question how much the ephemera contributes to the overall experience of enjoying something. That book is essential to enjoying another level of Twin Peaks. I almost, I would say watch the first season, though pick up an old copy of it, which you can probably find in every used bookstore known to man, and read it, because it was written by Lynch's daughter, and it was done very much in, we talk about canon, even though I don't think Lynch is a guy who's ever thought about canon in his life. It explores the relationship with Laura Palmer and James, and the kind of the stuff going on. Since Laura Palmer is almost a side character in her own story, it's a fascinating thing to enrich your experience of watching the show. Now,
and I will say, so James, probably one of my least favorite characters on the show. And part of that is the performance, but I also wonder if some of the problems I have with the performance are because that he was another character that come season 2, they had no idea what to do with him. Right. Or and I wonder how much of it is they didn't know what to do with him versus we kind of we don't really need him in Twin Peaks anymore. So let's put him on the road. Let's send him out in the wild blue yonder. And just we'll check in with him periodically because we're under contract with this actor. But, we don't really, once you solve the mystery, Laura Palmer's secret boyfriend, doesn't really matter that much anymore.
True.
So
the one big coup, and I haven't been able to find any additional information on this because this was a really a big question about 2 years ago, is the return of Everett McGill, who kind of dropped off the radar at an extent that a lot of actors don't, in the fact that even Lynch couldn't find him. He actually had put out a kind of a call to people saying, I've been trying to find Everett McGill because he obviously he was in Dune. He was I don't know how many other movies he made. He might have been in Blue Velvet. I don't remember, but they worked together a lot. He was he kind of would play. He had been in some B movies. Was it some weird movie where he turns into a half man, half iguana or something? I mean, he was.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, I know. I used to read Video Watchdog. There was an article about it in there. But yeah, over time he'd kind of just been relegated to playing. Oh, well, of course he played People Under the Stairs with Wes Craven, which was, I think he actually played with the woman that played his wife on Twin Peaks with the silent drawer, the runners.
Oh yeah.
I think Nadine. I forget her name. I don't even know if she's on this cast list, but I'm excited to see where he's been. I mean, like I said, he was one of these guys. He was in everything, and then he just disappeared. And I guess he just kind of left.
And to that point, so he was in The Straight Story in 1999, came out in 1999, which David Lynch directed. And he did an episode of Jag that aired in 1999. And then his next credit is essentially this Twin Peaks TV series that's coming out next year, right? So, he hasn't really done anything in the last almost 20 years.
I think somebody had said that he had moved out. He lives in the South, and he lived in like some rural area, and he wasn't particularly interested in being an actor. So I think that's why it became Lynch had to actually go to the public to say like, hey, I need to find this guy to at least offer it to him. Yeah. So I'm excited because I'm a big I
like Ed Hurley.
Yeah. And it's, if Norma's back and, they were.
And Ed in a different way than Albert Rosenfeld, but he was another person who kind of like grounded the show a little bit. I mean, because even, some of his story, he kind of moved in between the soap opera side of the show and, the actual mystery pieces that got weird sometimes. Like he went on this stakeout of One-Eyed Jacks.
Right, the Bookhouse Boy.
He did all that kind of stuff. But he, once they started talking about like Tibet or whatever, he would go like, "Well, that's above my pay grade." Exactly. And then he started singing on top of Old Smokey or whatever. And so it was, he grounded the show, like I said, in a slightly different way than Miguel Ferrer's character. So I think that'll be helpful to have those kind of characters on the show who make sure it just doesn't go off.
Yes.
It doesn't go completely left.
And of course, I'm going to skip ahead to my other notes is that Walter Oleskowitz. Is it called Olkowitz?
I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Olkowitz.
From
Jacques Renault. I
don't know where we left Jacques
Who's
Renault.
Dead?
Oh, is he dead?
Leland killed him.
Duh.
He left him out with the pillow.
Duh.
So either we're going to see him in like the Black Lodge or something, or I mean, do you think we're going to get flashbacks on the show?
Oh, I think
that's why I wonder with some of these returning characters, like how much of it is going to be, either episode 1 they show up and be like, well, I'm moving, the town's yours now, see you later, or they're shown in flashback of updating what's been happening over the last 20 years, and or flashing back to the events prior to the first season. So like what does Jacques Renault have for us in the future? It shouldn't be anything because he's dead.
Right. And I just did some really cursory kind of investigations on him. And I guess he's been kind of sidelined with some health issues with his knees. And so he hasn't been doing a lot of acting lately. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what are they going to do with this? Sarah Paxton. Did you ever see, now I've completely blanked on the movie. It's another movie that actually has Pat Healy in it. And it's a great low budget Ty West. It's like a horror movie.
Reanimator Academy?
No. Innkeepers.
Okay.
2000.
This must be a different Sarah Paxton.
It's called maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking of the Innkeepers
from 2011,
which is a really good, really low budget yet, very well done horror movie or supernatural film that it's definitely worth watching. It's kind of it's like I said, it's a small thing. I don't know what she's doing in this. We've already was there any, I'm going to skip down to Kimmy Robertson, obviously, who was, what was her name? Now I'm completely finding. She was the secretary. Lucy.
Yeah.
She's one of the few people I actually remember seeing.
She was really good on the show.
Yeah.
She's really funny. I like her a lot.
Yeah.
Wendy Roby played Nadine.
Yeah, so she's back. So
she's back.
I wonder if she still thinks she's 16 years old. Did we leave it that she was still?
No, because she came back because she snapped back because there was that scene where they were all sitting in the living room and Norma and Ed were trying to talk to her about like, all right, so we're going to get a divorce. You know what that means? And Mike is there too.
Oh yeah.
And then something happens and she's like, what's she doing here? Like, who's this?
But there was always a question whether she was faking it to kind of, I don't know. It's kind of that was a very complex character, and I'm glad to see that she's coming back.
But that's another thing, and again, I haven't seen. Well, I guess it's a prequel anyway, but she's another character that, like, it's much like Ben Horn and Doc Hayward, right? You had this like big momentous plot point happen, and then the show ended. So it's like, all right, well, what happened with that? Where are we going to pick up in these characters' relationship to one another?
Yeah,
Tim Roth,
which I haven't seen Tim Roth in a lot since he kind of was off on that Lie to Me show. So it'll be interesting to see what he's got going on. Carlton Lee Russell, who is that? I didn't make it. Let me see. He's returning. So let me just do okay. Popped right up. So let me see. No, I don't have a picture here, so it's one of those things where I probably won't.
Carlton Lee Russell, and the only Carlton Lee Russell listed on IMDb is a stunt guy. So it's weird that it says he's returning.
Yeah.
Maybe that was misplaced. Accidental asterisk.
It's just listed as sub. Yeah, if I Google it, just comes up as returning cast member or something. I don't know.
Oh, So in Missing Pieces, he was. Oh, and in Firewalk with Me, he's Jumping Man.
Oh, okay.
Or Jumping Man. So stunt. He did some kind of stunt in Firewalk with Me where he had to jump. I don't even remember any jumping in that show.
Yeah,
jumping was there in Firewalk with Me.
I don't know. I watched it last night and I didn't remember it, but I was making notes for today's show simultaneously, so I might have missed it.
He also portrayed Gary Coleman in Austin Powers International Man of Mystery.
Okay.
I assume that was a character name and not, like, he wasn't portraying Gary Coleman, the actor. He was portraying some person that they just called Gary Coleman. I don't know.
Well, when I do image search, I'm getting pictures of an African-American man, so.
All right.
So I don't know. It remains to be seen. But John Savage.
Yeah, I guess he did a Black People Award show sketch on In Living Color, so I assume that means he's black. What jumping person was there in Firewalk with Me?
I don't know, man.
Anyone jumping in that movie?
John Savage, who was a character actor who was quite popular back in the 70s. I think he did what was the one? It was about a Vietnam vet kind of hanging out with a bunch of guys coming back. He was in a wheelchair.
Or on the 4th of July?
No, it was back. Daniel Stern was in it. Anyway, he's been one of those guys that he was kind of on the upswing of his career, and then he kind of just, I guess his career maybe stalled out. Sometimes I've seen him he's done character work on things. He's kind of, I don't even remember the name of the movie, unfortunately. Last time I saw him in something, he showed up in the Jessica Alba, her first big thing, which was produced by James Cameron, called Dark Angel, and he played like a FBI agent trying to find her. Amanda Seyfried, which we all know her from like Big Love, and she played Linda Lovelace in a movie recently. I haven't really seen her in a lot.
She's done more wholesome things too.
Yeah.
Wasn't she in Mean Girls?
Oh yeah.
She did that ABBA movie with Meryl Streep, Mamma Mia.
Oh yeah.
She could be interesting. I could see her being sort of a Heather Graham type role in this. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I mean, I always feel bad kind of reducing Lynch's stuff to like quote weird, but like she hasn't really done anything that weird in her career, or she hasn't really done anything that suggests that like she would fit within Twin Peaks, really.
Well, I mean, the truth is,
right? Like, okay, she was in Ted 2. I don't think that's gonna.
I mean, even if you're making you made that joke about it being her playing Linda Lovelace was kind of not wholesome or whatever. But I mean, it goes to show you she's taking chances.
Yeah,
it's like that's
true.
not that's a depressing. I only kind of read the reviews of it. It's a pretty depressing movie because that woman had a rough life, and it's like that was like the thing. Yeah, there's a lot of nudity, but there's also a lot of violence, and so it's obviously she's a real actor. It's like she's gonna take chances. So we don't have to,
Well, so, I mean, does that suggest, do you think that she's going to be the new Laura Palmer, or that, her character is going to sort of echo some of Laura Palmer's traits and lifestyle? Anything's
possible. If you want to go for, like, if he wants to play with this idea of the, poor little schoolgirl who has an innocent face, but really she has a secret life. You'd be hard-pressed. I mean, she's not... Amanda Seyfried's not really. I think she can't really convincingly play a teenager anymore. But I only think she's in her late 20s or whatever. But who knows? I mean, that was part of the thing about Twin Peaks, is it played with that old idea of like when you watch movies from the 50s when it was a bunch of teenagers and they look like they're 35. So that you can always play with that. So it's like it's not beyond the realm of possibility when you deal with David Lynch, when he's playing with these archetypes of like 50s television and movies. Tom Sizemore. I mean, I love Tom Sizemore. He's been kind of relegated. He worked with all the biggies. And then he kind of got sidelined with some drug things in the past, but I think that's all kind of behind him. I heard an interview with him recently with Bret Easton Ellis. He's a very engaged actor. He's a guy who's been doing a lot of, like I said, a lot of low budget action stuff. Probably because he might have burned some bridges in the other times of his life. But I'm glad that Lynch would kind of I don't mean take a chance, because the guy can act. I mean I was just literally thinking about how great he was in Heat, the Michael Mann. So, and of course, Harry Dean Stanton. I mean, he's been
they say he's returning, but
is
he in Twin Peaks?
Oh, he was in Firewalk with me because he made that strong coffee for
that's right,
Chester Desmond and stuff.
That's right,
and then Cooper visits him again or whatever. So
he's also 90. I think. He'll be 90 this year. So it'll be interesting to see what his role is, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's fun. That's exciting. I'm glad. So the fact that they're bringing in actors who, right? Because Harry Dean Stanton, his character didn't live in Twin Peaks, right?
No, he was the Teresa.
Right, wherever, I can't remember where that took place, like what city or town that took place in. So do you think they're going to be showing us life outside of Twin Peaks, or do you think they're bringing, like I said, just whoever had worked with him, and okay, you were in Firewalk with me, you worked at this diner, or you ran this trailer park, but we're going to make you a new character in Twin Peaks? And
it'll be interesting if they're actually going to go back and kind of. And maybe like either flashback or I don't know. There's a big age difference. Now, of course, Harry Dean Stanton's always looks like he's about 79 years old. He's always, even in the 80s. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't think Lynch is the kind of guy who's going to be like, oh, I got to spend, I'm going to spend $20 million trying to de-age all my characters for a flashback. Because I think if he does a flashback, he might put some makeup on them, maybe put some shoe polish in their hair or something, and just kind of go with it and go like, it's like, this only works if you believe it anyway. So why make you have to, why have to make all this extra effort? Yeah. So some of these returning ones, I'm not. It was Charlotte
Stewart was Mrs. Briggs. I want to say her name was Betty, but she was in that. But she was in Eraserhead as well, I think. She's done a ton of stuff. She's all over the place, or at least she was for a large part of her career. She was in Tremors, which I'm sure you remember. But then she was also on Coach. She did the Little House on the Prairie series from the 70s. I think Eraserhead and Twin Peaks might have been the only Lynch stuff she did. But yeah, no, she's good. So, Major Briggs won't be back because Don Davis has passed away. But, like I said, I think they're bringing back as many people as they can. Al Strobel, I think, Mike, right? He played Mike, the one-armed shoe salesman.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be good. I really liked him in Twin Peaks a lot. And so I don't know if I don't know that his story has like much to wrap up. Maybe again, this is a flashback or something, or maybe he's still hanging around Twin Peaks. Maybe he, if the spirit of Bob is still in and around Twin Peaks, maybe he's going to hang around too to try to stop Bob forever.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Bob, I mean, Carol Stroiken, who plays, I guess, I mean, isn't he half of Bob in the Black Lodge or whatever? He's the very tall man.
Well, he's the giant.
Yeah, he's the giant, and Michael J. Anderson is the other half. I mean, as far as I've heard it explained, is that they are supposed to represent the two halves of Bob that separate when they go into the Black Lodge.
Right. Because at one point Michael J. Anderson says, like, I am the arm. So
right.
Yeah.
So it's, I didn't remember his name, and I'm like, oh, okay. So that's, he played Mr. Halm in Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I'm glad he's still around.
He was in the Addams Family movies.
Yes.
With Lurch.
As Lurch. And then Ethan Suplee, who is a, he's been...
I don't know.
It's like,
I don't know about that one.
He used to be kind of a Kevin Smith guy. I think at least in one or two movies.
Well, and he was on, what was that Jason Lee show about...
My Name is Earl.
Yeah. He was the brother on the brother, he was kind of like, he was basically like the deputy Andy of My Name is Earl. And so it's like, all right, well, if he's playing a similar character, then why do we have two of those type of characters? But maybe I'm typecasting, I guess, because he was in American History X too, so he can do intense if he needs to.
Yeah, and he's one of these dudes. His weight fluctuates, so sometimes he's just like a normal sized dude, and he can put on weight, and So I don't know what that means for what he's playing, but sometimes he's just he's just a working actor.
Yep.
And then there's of course Russ Tamblyn, who's Dr. Jacoby.
Russ Tamblyn, so great.
Father-in-law to David Cross.
Yeah, and Russ Tamblyn, he was an old what's it called, soap opera guy.
Yeah, like B-movie biker movies too.
But his part in Twin Peaks, it was weird because it wasn't part of like the soap opera side. It was part of the mystery and like the weirdness side. But even then, like, his character was this kind of odd guy, but it was a completely different energy and a completely different rhythm from like the way that Cooper and all the Tibet and Bob stuff was weird, right? It was just like, it was this completely other thing that was just like thrown into the show, and it was great. And you could tell that he loved doing it, and he loved playing that weird energy, or at least that energy that like didn't fit within the rest of everything. So I'm excited that he's back.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
So I guess we're kind of Sharon Van Etten and Eddie Vedder. I mean, I think these are things. So I think
Eddie Vedder's the one I saw. I was like, wait a minute. And that's why I wonder if you're right, if they're just soundtrack people.
Somebody had just jokingly remind me that he had a small turn in Singles, the Cameron Crowe movie.
That's what it was going through.
And
my
it
head.
wasn't, it's not like he had any kind of real acting chops. So it makes me wonder, like a Sharon Van Etten. I just know that she's a musician, and maybe she's on the soundtrack, or she's going to be playing. I mean, I honestly don't know. Naomi Watts, another
who's probably, I mean, she's the biggest star on this cast list, right? I mean, in terms
maybe
of like
compared to Ashley Judd or something like
that. Yeah, that's true. Ashley Judd's been in big stuff, and I guess Ernie Hudson's been in big stuff.
Yes.
Monica Bellucci, maybe. But I mean, she's like a huge movie star. So it'll be interesting to see how big of a role they give her on this. Yeah. Or, if she's just kind of like wandering in and out, or if she is a central character.
Right, and of course, the return of what we assume is he'll be playing Leland Palmer.
Yeah,
Ray Wise.
Either in the Black Lodge, maybe, or a flashback or something. Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can say about that guy that hasn't already been said. I mean, it'll be interesting how they use these characters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's about all I could say. I mean, I do like Ray Wise.
Yeah.
Alicia Witt, who is another Lynch long time, all the way back when she was a child, and played Alia in Dune, and she also played was she Laura Palmer's cousin?
Sister.
Oh
no, she was Donna Hayward's sister.
Donna Hayward's sister, who played piano, and Ray Wise would freak out and start trying to that kind of stuff. Yep. So she was also very good on the TV show Sybil. With Sybil Shepherd and Christine Baranski and her, it was just kind of fun. It was a fun show. And then she was also did a short run in Sopranos and Friday Night Lights. Charlene Yee, which is kind of interesting. I haven't seen a lot.
I actually haven't heard that name in several years.
I have not heard that name.
She's actually gotten a lot of work, but
yeah, I mean,
we'll see.
She was an LA comedy kid who kind of got in some roles. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. She landed in the Judd Apatow group for a while. I don't know if she's still part of that crowd,
right?
Because it doesn't look like a lot of her work. I guess did he executive produce Love, that Netflix show? Was he involved in?
Yes.
Okay, so she's on Love. So I guess technically that counts, but she hasn't done an Apatow crowd movie since This Is 40.
Right.
But apparently she was on House for a couple years.
Oh, I never watched that show.
She does a voice on Steven Universe. So she was in Cloverfield apparently. So yeah, you saw her name, or if you paid any attention to the LA comedy scene, you saw her name a lot for a while, and then I guess when you stopped paying attention to that scene, you just kind of stopped hearing about her. But she's been getting work. So, yeah, we'll see. She could be really good, or she could be just kind of there, I think. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I think the last name of note would be Grace Zabriskie.
Yeah.
Laura's mother. And, yeah, I mean, it's great to see that they've got that family back. I mean, I don't really know... wasn't she kind of almost catatonic at the end of this show? I mean, I forget.
No, I mean, right. So, she wasn't catatonic. I mean, but she was someone who they really didn't have anything to do with her character after Leland died and was buried. Right. I think his funeral might've been the last time you saw her.
Maybe.
Because there was really no other reason to have her on the show. There was no reason to show. Right, she was all that remained of the Palmer family.
Really. Oh yeah, because now her cousin.
And there was no reason to just show her for any reason. That is talking to people. So I think, at the funeral, she was starting to wean herself off of the painkillers or antidepressants or whatever Doc Hayward was prescribing her. And she's like, no, I need to be here. I need to be present. I need to feel all of this. And so it seemed like you kind of sensed that she would be okay. But considering that I guess the only reason that they would have brought her in the second season would have been towards the end when they had, the Log Lady and Major Briggs kind of joining forces a little bit, with Sarah Palmer. She also appeared to be some kind of channel for the Black Lodge, or she appeared to be some kind of channel for the Black Lodge. They may have brought her back. They may have brought her back once. I feel like maybe Bob's voice talking to Cooper, I'm in the Black Lodge with so-and-so.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember if that was before or after. That must have been after, because I don't think they talked about the Black Lodge until after Leland died. But it was just the one appearance. I'm sure any Twin Peaks super fans listening to this episode have been horrified the whole time. Cause
oh yeah.
I'm like, wait, was she on the show? What did she do? What was her show?
I'm like,
but
I mean,
yeah, no, she was really good, and she played on Seinfeld. She was one of the many actors that was on both Twin Peaks and Seinfeld. And I want to say she was George's stepmother. Right?
I think you're right.
Not stepmother at the time, but
was it with the wife that died, the fiance that died from the glue poisoning? Right.
She was, and she had a big episode when they find out that Susan's father had an affair with John Cheever.
Oh yeah.
That was a big episode for Grace Zabriskie's character. But then she was also great in the episode where George pretends that he has a place in the Hamptons. And Susan's parents keep like calling him on it, and Susan's like, "Well, I guess we're driving to the Hamptons." She's really good at that one too. Yeah, great, and she's also good in Inland Empire. She has this kind of like weird role that is never explained. Like nothing about her character is ever explained, but she's good in it.
So, I mean, that's pretty much the list of, our cherry picking of the names that we could research. Just quickly, I will say that there's kind of, there's some names that are missing for people that, obviously there's people who've passed. So I won't go back into that. But Piper Laurie, who is still around, and even as of like 2 years ago had commented that she would love to be a part of it.
Yeah, she was great on the show. She was so good.
So I don't know if they just didn't have a spot for her, or maybe her situation has changed and she's not available to act. Yeah. Joan Chen, who is still a working actor, I haven't seen any.
And she's a talented actress. I don't know that I always loved her on Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
I felt like, and this is what I'm worried about a little bit with Monica Bellucci, is that Lynch and Mark Frost and whoever else, involved in writing the show, they got a lot of mileage just out of like the fact that she was this exotic woman.
Right.
And they didn't really give her, okay, so you don't speak English very well and blah, blah, blah. Right. You have this like mysterious Asian woman vibe about you.
You can't really.
So I don't think they gave her really enough to do to like show that like, no, she's a good actress and stuff. So I'm a little worried that the same thing's going to happen with Monica Bellucci.
And Michael Ontkeen, of course, we spoke about that. He's I guess he's effectively retired, so he doesn't act anymore. So Harry S. Truman, I doubt though. I know. Hopefully they won't recast and they'll just write him out of it. Laura Flynn Boyle, no, that's a no show.
Yep.
No Heather Graham. No Moira Kelly, even.
I was gonna say not even Moira Kelly.
So maybe they've just completely dropped the Donna Hayward character completely.
But her parents and her sister are in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder if there might be a recast going on. I mean, he was willing to do it, so. And the one that kind of stands out to me is the one that's missing from the list, especially since he appeared in kind of the teaser for this whole project, was Michael J. Anderson, who played the man. Was it the man from Another Place? Is his name? Is the small man, the 3-foot man who is kind of a huge part of the lodge scenes. It's like, I don't know if this is a matter of like they're kind of keeping it close to the vest. They want to surprise people, or that he's had legal issues before. He's had drug issues. I don't. Maybe he's allegedly or whatever. He's not. Has health issues, or maybe it's they couldn't come to an agreement on the money or something. Who knows?
Yeah,
I think it would be kind of strange not to have him, but you have to work with they have to work with what they have. It's just not everybody is necessarily like is willing to just go, okay, whatever you want to pay me as long as I can be part of it. It's like some people.
Yeah, and I was a little worried at first, especially since we didn't see him. I was thinking, okay, so now who is going to be part of the Black Lodge or the White Lodge or whatever? And I was like, is that what Trent Reznor is going to be? Like, are they going to put him as like a Black Lodge? And so going into it, I was worried about that. But after our conversation, I think I'm a little more hopeful that, like you said, Lynch just listed everyone. All of the kind of above the line and soundtrack people involved on the show.
I think I think that might be the idea, that they're contributing to the music, and that therefore they're cast members. Unless they're going to put Lollapalooza on it, Twin Peaks or something.
Just the ending of Lost Highway. Like I really like Lost Highway, but that ending just ruins like I can't even watch the movie because I know that the ending is what's, and so that's why that's another reason why I got worried about like, oh, they're gonna put Trent Reznor in this thing. Is this like kind of whatever he's bringing to the table these days is like, oh, look at this creepy guy. I don't know. So, yeah, but hopefully not.
Yeah, like I said, I have part of me wonders what this is going to be like. It's so hard to go back on something after, almost 25 years and try to recapture the magic and makes you wonder what the magic was in the first place. If, Lynch's, his projects have changed over time. It's the idea where it's like, he made such an iconic series that he actually kind of abandoned in the second season. So it's like he didn't actually have a very huge direct influence on that second season. Now, some people would say that, like, well, that's is why we're excited about this reboot, because then he's not going to be, he'll be involved. It'll be more like that first season rather than
I mean, the second season has its ups and downs, and we don't need to rehash like everything,
right,
all of our feelings about season 2. But I do feel like there were some decent parts to season 2.
Yeah.
And as long as they sort of focus on those and less, I think it has less to do with the fact that Lynch wasn't working on it. And as I said, the fact that, okay, the network kind of forced them to wrap up the story, but that meant that there were some characters who were left adrift, and they don't really know what to do with these characters anymore, but they're still under contract and we need to put them in stuff. So that's where a lot of this stuff happened.
But, yeah, so I mean, I think that's probably a good place to stop. I mean,
yeah,
I think I would say I hope you guys enjoyed this little diversion, and that Star Wars fans might have some cross pollination. You guys weren't horrified that your Star Wars podcast has changed gears. I think we like to do that occasionally.
Yeah,
we're probably interested in doing maybe in 2017. Scheduling whatever. Maybe we'll do something as a separate show, kind of going over this reboot. Yeah. If you want to talk to us, you can reach out to us at talkingbirdcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at talkingbirdcast. We are probably, by the time maybe in the next week or so, you'll be seeing that we are going to have an announcement of having a central web presence, just so you can have a one stop, not necessarily shop, to get all your, so we can just basically send you one place if you want to interact with us or read up or listen to old episodes. The only other thing is that I'm still kind of working the kinks out of this. I've signed up for an Amazon affiliate program. There will be a link in the show notes this week. If it's what it is, it's a situation that if you click through our link, it takes you to Amazon.com, and then if you purchase something from Amazon.com, we get a percentage of the sale back from Amazon. It doesn't cost you anything extra. It's the same if you went directly to the site. It's just a way for us to kind of offset some of the costs of hosting a podcast like this. If you don't want to do it, that's cool. If you do it, I will just say one thing as far as disclosure. I'm kind of new to this myself. I did a test purchase from my wife's account, and it doesn't say who purchased things, but it will tell me what was purchased. So if it's just foreknowledge. If you're kind of like you don't want people knowing what you purchase on Amazon, it's not going to say Joe Smith bought 10 cases of beans or something like it. Just says 10 cases of beans were bought. Like I said, it doesn't cost you anything extra. I'd really appreciate it. We both appreciate it. It's just a way to kind of offset the cost of the show. And when the site's up, we're going to have more of a direct link kind of thing. But for now, this week, it'll just be the link will just be in the show notes. Did you have anything you wanted to?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. And for Talking Birdcast, I have been Robert Zachary.
I'm still John Llewellyn.
Thanks for listening.
Fellas, don't drink that coffee. You'd never guess. There was a fish in the percolator. Sorry.